Today, we're going to be talking about EMFs. What is it? Is it in general that all EMFs are bad? Why we as pet lovers and just people in general should care? What are some of the things that we should really stay away from?
Which makes it so easy.
And free.
And free.
Today, we are super excited to welcome Dr. Barry Sands, and we're going to be talking about EMFs. But Dr. Barry is a veterinarian, healer, educator, scientist, author, artist, and speaker. She values seeking truth as it pertains to humanity and our relationships that we have with ourselves, each other, nature, and the animals we cohabitate with. She has worked as a veterinarian in private practice, emergency, critical care, and integrative holistic medicine. Each has given her a unique perspective on the health challenges that animals and humans face. She believes bridging the gap between the body, mind, and spirit is an integral part in the healing and maintenance of health and well-being. She's spent countless hours triaging and treating pets in crisis and counseling the owners that accompany them, and has a passion for co-creating health for both animals and humans alike. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Barry. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Gwen. Good morning. I'm really excited about this topic. I think it's an underspoken and very important thing to speak about. So I'm really glad we have an opportunity today.
Absolutely. And I got a chance to actually meet you in person at AHVMA, which is wonderful. So it's great to see you again on a personal note. Today, we're going to be talking about EMFs. And so this is kind of the first time that we're really diving into this topic on our platform. I wanted you to start really basic as far as what does EMF stand for? What is it? And a little bit about why we as pet lovers and just people in general should care about this topic.
Well, the word EMF stands for electromagnetic frequencies. It is something that we experience every single day of our lives. These electromagnetic frequencies come from the sun. The sun emits every spectrum of every frequency of light into our atmosphere, into our planet, and it infuses everything around us. And this electromagnetic spectrum ranges from really, really slow wavelengths to really, really fast wavelengths. Of all of these frequencies, a frequency is a sine wave, right? Which is also another word for a sine wave is an oscillation. And that word's gonna be important as I describe it a little bit more later. But an oscillation is just an up and down wave, like a sine wave that you learned in calculus that nobody wanted to know about.
Right? I loved calculus. It was my favorite subject personally.
Well, there you go. Then you understand the whole wave functions of things. Electromagnetic frequencies, when we think about all of that, our visible light spectrum, the rainbow that we see, is 1/100th of all the possible frequencies out there to experience, from radio waves, which are really slow, to microwaves, and then we get into the spectrums of the 3G, 4G, 5G energies that everyone's thinking like, oh my God, it's so toxic. And then we get into the rainbow light, which is red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, violet. On the red, there's the infrared, which is right before the red, which is our infrared technologies that we use for healing. Lasers are infrared technology, infrared saunas, right? To just give you some conceptual ideas. And then on the outside of the violet, we have our ultraviolet, which is a little bit faster than the violet. And those are the ultraviolet frequencies that everyone is afraid of because they're going to create skin cancers. Right, the UV, the lotions that we put on our skin blocks the UV, right, the ultraviolet. But not all ultraviolet is bad. There's different parts of ultraviolet frequencies, and some are actually very beneficial for us. And then you go into the really fast frequencies, such as the X-rays and the stuff that we use for imaging, radiation therapies, X-rays, gamma rays, and things like that. And so kind of that's EMFs sort of in a visual nutshell of of what that is. And when you think of visualizing electromagnetic frequencies, think of the aurora borealis. People see, especially I think in the last 2 weeks, there was a massive surge of all of these lights that we were able to see more south of where they normally were, like all across the northern hemisphere. People were saying they were seeing these beautiful northern lights. Basically, all that is these electromagnetic frequencies coming from the sun, flowing on things called solar winds, and then they get into our atmosphere and they interact with the oxygen and the nitrogen in our atmosphere. And when the frequencies hit the molecules, they glow, they emit the light frequency. So then you see it as green or red or orange or yellow. And so those are the dancing lights in the sky. We can see that. That's a very visual experience of these electromagnetic frequencies. Most of the time we don't see it. And I think we live in a culture that says, well, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. But that's not true. Right? Because when we're out in the sun and we're laying there on the beach, just getting all warm, and we wake up and have a sunburn, right? We didn't see that, but it affected us.
So it sounds like EMFs are really everywhere in our daily lives for both us and our pets, all living creatures on the planet. Some are natural, coming from nature. Others are manufactured or harnessed for use, like x-rays and radiation therapies that you were talking about. Is it in general that all EMFs are bad, or is it just these things exist and there are certain things that you need to be aware of?
They're not good, bad, right, or wrong. They just exist. Certain frequencies that we know of in the lower spectrums, like the microwaves and the 5Gs and the 4Gs, like those are the electromagnetic frequencies, the things that are attached to the technology, the phones, the electronics, the rotors, the modems in your house. Those are the ones that seem to have a negative effect on our physiology. They create dissonance within our cellular structures. I feel to really embrace this concept, you have to understand that essentially our biology is an energy-based system. Everything is an energy-based system, whether it's a plant or an animal or a human. We are a mixture of subatomic particles that become molecules, that become compounds, that become tissue, that become cells, that become, a biology. So at our very core, we are these molecules. The way molecules work, you have polarities of energy charges. You have negative and positive charges, electrons and protons. That's kind of like the basic of it. They spin around each other. When particles spin, when electrons and protons are moving, because everything's moving, that's when you create this electromagnetic field. So we have electromagnetic fields in our bodies already, generating all the time with our trillions and 50 trillion cells, quadrillion molecules, right? We're creating these energy frequencies, and each individual tissue has its own frequency. The heart has a different frequency than the spleen, which has a different frequency than your muscles, which has a different frequency than your microbiome. Everything has its own energy signature. And when we are exposed to other frequencies like these, microwaves or 5Gs or whatever, or technology, there's an interference with our biology, and it has created damage. We know that, there have been studies that show, and anecdotally, people, they get headaches, they get nausea, they get anxiety, they get palpitations. It's been linked to cancers, cellular disruption, mitochondrial damage at the core of our cellular structures. So yeah, it can be damaging. And then there are more healing frequencies.
Something that I thought was interesting when I started to research this topic a little bit before we had this discussion was that some EMFs can legitimately break chemical bonds and they can change molecules like you're talking about. So I think when you put it in that perspective, even though, as you stated earlier, we can't see those frequencies coming and changing things, but they can make physical changes within our bodies, as you were describing. Or it can go the other way and it can have beneficial healing properties. Let's start there with what are a few examples of things that you've found maybe helpful, and then what are some of the things that we should really stay away from for both us and our pets?
I think the easy answer is to address the things to stay away from, right? Because that's kind of quick. Things like the technology-based things are the things that seem to be the most damaging, like cell towers, cell phones, people wearing cell phones on their bodies, sleeping next to that, having the phone on, and your laptops and things. So turn off the technology, right? That'll help with, first and foremost, if you have sensitivities to that. Not everybody does. But some people are very sensitive to that. And if you are, put it on airplane mode or turn off the Wi-Fi at night or things like that. Those are easy fix. Don't live under a cell tower. Don't put your bed against the wall that has all of your router and all of that. You can change that up. I think the conversation about what's beneficial is more exciting for me because there are so many interesting ways that we can offset these frequencies that lends itself to a conversation that goes a little bit esoteric, because they have technology. They have these things called bioresonance objects that you can wear on your neck. You can put it on your dog's collar or your cat's collar. You can attach these things to your electronics, your phones and your laptops. The concept of bioresonance therapy, it's mechanisms based in quantum physics, where technologies are emitting certain frequencies that are sort of offsetting the frequencies that are coming in. How that works is a concept of what we call constructive or destructive interference. The way I'm going to explain that, because I think this is an important concept when we talk more about how we and our animals can offset these toxic energies through energy. You have to fight energy with energy. There's no other way to do that. So when you have two waveforms that are coming in, say, your sine waves, if they're at the same frequency, when they meet up, they're going to create an amplification. They're going to get bigger. Two waves hitting each other at the same frequency are going to create a bigger wave that's amplified. So that is what we call a constructive interference. They're interfering with each other and they're adding to each other. Now, if you have two waveforms that are going at different speeds, if there's one that's going like this and then there's one that's going really fast, eventually they're going to sort of cancel each other out. And that's called a destructive interference. Right? When you flatten the line. That's important because that's the mechanisms that are happening when we are being infused with these toxic, or I should say more damaging wavelengths, say the microwaves or the 4 or 5G waves that are coming in that are hurting our bodies. We are offsetting those with different frequencies, right? So that we can cancel them out. So that's the basic mechanisms of helping neutralize those toxic frequencies.
Yeah, that is very interesting because I have heard the suggestion before, especially we were just talking about managing pets that have early cognitive dysfunction and how they can be very sensitive to EMFs within the home. And if you can, at night when their sleep disturbances happen, if you can turn off the Wi-Fi and all those other types of radiation within the home to help soothe and settle those types of pets. But I haven't heard before talking about this destructive type frequency where you can actually interfere with the various frequencies that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
These are physical items that you can wear, or is there, what are some of the examples of how this might be instituted in a home or on a person?
There are companies, that make different products. Like I said, that you can wear on your dogs, put it on the collar, like these little circular things that emit frequencies, but more in a quantum state. Like there's no battery, there's no charge to it. It just sort of exists and it does this bioresonance through quantum technology, which is, I feel like we don't really have time to delve into all of that. However, what I wanted to introduce or invite people is the concept of the frequencies that are emitted through our own physiology, because we truly have the power to deconstruct and interfere with these frequencies in our own bodies. We have that technology within us. And that technology is based upon our thoughts and our emotions.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. And that's like I said, it gets a little bit esoteric, but we know that this is a true phenomenon. We know that thoughts have frequencies. We know that emotions carry frequencies. As a certified trainer with the HeartMath Institute, the HeartMath Institute is a science-based research facility that has studied the intuitive nature of the heart and the emotions and the frequencies and how to create a coherent biophysiology whereby the frequencies within the system are very smooth and unified, if that makes sense. And we know that when we go into a state of what's called physiological coherence, meaning that the frequencies of the brain and the frequencies of the heart are in complete alignment and communication, basically what you're feeling, what you're thinking is the same thing. And you link that with a elevated emotion. Elevated emotions are emotions like joy, awe, courage, pride, love, gratitude, appreciation, kindness, tolerance. Like those kind of feelings create this smooth, coherent situation in your physiology. And we know that when we're in that state, we'll emit that out into the field around us. And so there's a lot of studies. I think currently they have over 500 peer-reviewed papers, white papers that are out there that are showing, the true effects of doing these techniques.
For people, they can be taught these things or kind of coached through these types of things. Is something similar available for our pets, or how does that work with animals that we can't have this conversation with?
Yeah, so that lends itself into a conversation of what I call biofield entanglement. And biofield entanglement is we are all in each other's space, and people understand it intuitively. They just don't think about it conceptually. They feel something, their dog feels it. I have anxiety, my dog has anxiety. I'm calm, my dog is calm. They know that. Everyone's talking about it. They just don't know why they know it or how it's working, but they know it's a thing. And so when we as the human go into that physiological state, we can incorporate that energy into our animal's field, and then they will go into a coherent state just by being in that field. And that study has been done with animals. HeartMath has done that study with dogs, horses, and within humans, to show that this interspecies biofield entanglement happens when the human is coherent.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting when you said that. It totally triggered some memories because I grew up riding horses, and horses are very sensitive. You could always tell whatever the person, the rider was experiencing. You could just look at the horse's body language and you know that they are feeling every little bit of the nerves or excitement or fear that person may be experiencing. I think you're right. I think this is something that people will naturally can see the signs of. You can see, how you are so well connected to the animal that you cohabitate with. But when we start talking about why that is and why it's important, I think this is really important for people to learn how we can help best support our pet.
And inadvertently, you help yourself because, we live in a toxic world, of all sorts of toxins, the air we breathe, the food, the water, the environment. It's too much. And so, how do we offset all of that? Sure, there's, eat clean foods, organic, drink water, hydrate, the herbs, detoxing. There's all sorts of mechanisms to do. But what I think is not very often spoken about is the energetic aspect of the detoxing. And it's almost the simplest thing to do because all you need is you. You don't need anything else except the thoughts that you have and the feelings that you emote. It's like your own personal backpack. You have it all inside. We just have to unpack it and use it and, and practice it. People, it's a very difficult thing, I find, for people to regulate their emotions. People want to be afraid. They don't want to be afraid. They are, but they don't know what to do differently. And when I say the word afraid of, disease, of illness, you tell an owner that their dog has cancer, they go to places of dread and fear and worry, and they can't get out of that. It's really hard for them because for a lot of different reasons, but the best thing that you could do for your cancer dog is to emote really loving, positive emotions into that field, because that's going to create a healing mechanism.
Absolutely. And there was, I'm going to have to find it, but there was a study that it took plants, and one environment was people were speaking lovingly to the plants and words of affirmation and very, very positive language to the plants. And another one was either silence or speaking out like very negative, harsh things. And the plant, just from that, the difference, the plants in the positive environment grew better. And so for a lot of people, I feel like that's so challenging to wrap your mind around, because you're thinking, oh, well, it's really about the nutrients in the soil or the sunlight or the amount of water they get, which all of those things are important, of course. But I think we forget exactly what you are highlighting today, which is the power of our energy and how much we can impact not just our own lives, but the living creatures around us. It can be really, really impactful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really thinking about life on a different level. It's like when we have a cake, say you're baking a cake, you have to get the ingredients, right? There's a list of things that you're going to have to put together in a certain ratio and then do something to that, like usually apply heat so that it grows a cake. If you deconstruct it further, right, to the tiniest little thing, at the basis of everything is a particle, is a wave, is a frequency. And so really what we're doing is just taking a big jump just into the energy frequency realm and starting from that aspect and altering it from that place.
So when you're working with patients and this type of thing comes up, do you still recommend having time away from maybe the more negative types of frequencies, like your Wi-Fi or your cell phone? Do you mostly focus on this piece, or is it a combination of both that you think is important?
It's definitely a combination of both, because
Okay.
you can't climb Mount Everest until you've learned how to strengthen your fingers. I don't there's like little baby steps until you can really know what that feels like. All of the things are important. Everything's important. The food that you eat, the organic nature of it, right? No pesticides and insecticides and all of that. How your body metabolizes it, the emotions that you have around it, the thoughts that you're having around it. It's all important, because we are, we're three-dimensional beings living in a three-dimensional space, yet we're interfacing with all this energy. So it's important to, sort of just do it all.
And so if somebody's listening to this and they're very interested in learning more or applying it specifically to help their pet, do you have any resources? Should somebody book a consultation with you, or do you have a course? Is there any additional resources we could provide for people where this resonates?
They can certainly go to the heartmath.org website and start gaining a little bit of information to that, of just how to sort of transmute energies, in your own time, and reading the research. It's a lot of good information. I have some information on my website that people can read about.
Is that drbarrysands.com? We'll definitely include that in the links as well. Was there anything else that we either did not talk about today, or you think is just really important to drive home to everybody about the topic of EMFs and radiation?
One, it's real. Energies that you don't see are affecting you on many, many different levels. And you have the ability to transmute them through your physiology, through your emission of your emotions and your thoughts, because emotions and thoughts have frequencies that can offset the frequencies that are around you, and we intuitively know that. We know that when you're in front of a person that is just this emanating this amazing feel good, feelings, you feel that. Or you feel it when something has just gone wrong. If you walk into a room of two people having an argument and you just happen to walk in, you're blasted with this like wall of like, okay, what's going on? We know this intuitively. We just don't know how to apply it in our lives in a real way. And I think once we just embrace the idea of the unseen world as something that is really palpable, that we can use in our lives, then the conversation becomes less esoteric, I think, and more sort of normal. That's what I would love. I would love a world to have more conversations where this becomes more of a normal thing. How can I help my dog feel less anxious if I go into a state of physiological coherence and I emanate that frequency out to them? now they're calm. It happens naturally. It just, you're not always mindful of that. That's why horses are such a good example of helping people heal. They're such big hearts, and they're so good at being coherent and helping people out of those anxieties. There's a really good movie that's coming out. It's called Rescued Hearts. It's about the energies of horses and how horses create healing in humans. And I'm actually in that movie as a speaker on on how that works, the frequencies and the energy around that. That should be coming out hopefully, I think by the end of the year.
That's wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that. And thank you again so much for your time. I know that we just barely scraped the surface of this topic, but I think it was a great way to get people interested to learn more about this. And we'll be talking about it more on our channel as well. But thank you so much, Dr. Berry, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It was really, really fun. Thank you for inviting me, Gwen. And I look forward to, more conversations, because I do think this is an important topic, and it's easy. You don't need anything. You just need you, which makes it so easy
And free.
and free. And it's free.